and NCAA student athletes.
Yeah, you got your GPA in Boston, right?
I love it.
And just about all of them will be going pro in something other than sports.
Can I get it in a loafer for casual Fridays? Yes. Yes.
Effort, drive, and determination build champions. Be there March 19th through 20th at the Salem Civic Center in Salem, Virginia for the 2010 NCAA Division III Men's Basketball Championship, hosted by Old Dominion Athletic Conference and the City of Salem. For tickets, call 540-375-3004 or log on to ncaa.com/tickets.
Ever wonder where you can hear the latest Division III basketball news?
Welcome to the big show.
That's Hoopsville.
Great show.
The only show dedicated to Division III basketball in the world.
I'll tell you what, I'll support them.
You can tune in to where coaches, players, fans, and even us commentators chat about the week that was and the week that will be. So tune into Hoopsville Sunday nights from 7 until 9 Eastern live on your computer. Or check out the podcast. Because if you want to talk Division III basketball, you've got to listen to Hoopsville. Hoopsville is presented by D3Hoops.com and broadcast thanks to Counter College Radio. For more information, go to www.d3hoops.com/Hoopsville.
And this is Hoopsville. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. If you have any questions for us, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. Join us in the chat room as well. We'll certainly love to hear from you there. There's tons of you in there, including those who tried to spam us. Gotta love it. Or join us on Twitter, D3Hoopsville there. So if you have any questions, that's how you get a hold of us. Going to switch gears now and bring in two guys, Pat Coleman and Bob Quillman. And Bob, welcome to the show. Well, Pat, welcome back.
Hey guys, how are you?
Pretty good. Got Bob. Do we have Pat?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. Can you guys hear each other?
I can. Impressive technology.
Awesome. It works.
Wow.
You never know.
If only we had picture in picture in picture.
You know, there is that option here.
I'm not going to turn the webcam on my laptop. So.
No, but hey, guys, obviously this is the big night here, and tons of questions, and let's look at the Midwest and West primarily, and WIAC a little bit here, Bob, and let's start with a WIAC, which we actually haven't talked a lot about because on the men's side it kind of held status quo, but Stevens Point finally enacted some revenge there and got Whitewater in the title game.
Yeah, you know, those two teams, some interesting matchups there. Whitewater won the first two, and then Stevens Point got the biggie for the Pool A, and so. You know, I think bottom line is that both teams are in. Whitewater's in, Stevens Point are in. Both are fairly high seeds, I think it's safe to say. And I would say that no other WIAC team really has a legit Pool C chance, is my take.
Yeah, that was my take too. We got down to at the end. Yeah, sorry, Dave.
No, go ahead.
We got down at the end to having Wisconsin lacrosse on the board for a very, very long time. They got on the board. Let me see. Is that right away? No. I think when St. Thomas got in the field with the third Pool C selection, then lacrosse got on the board. But lacrosse's regional winning percentage was just .667. They were 3-3 against regionally ranked teams, which was good, but and a .559 strength of schedule. But the regional winning percentage was so low. And then when it came down to the end, even for that last spot, I looked at them with everything in play, secondary criteria and everything against Anderson. And Anderson won at Platteville, whereas lacrosse did not win at Platteville. Lacrosse lost at Platteville. Of course, lacrosse beat Platteville at home, but the head-to-head comparison, or the common opponent comparison that was most close we could make was playing in Platteville's gym. And that's where Anderson was able to come away with a win and at least temporarily get into that 19th slot before Mary Hardin Baylor made it all go away.
Yeah, seriously. Bob, from your point of view, how did things in the last week kind of shape up from around the region?
Well, I would say in the West, to start with, I think it really shaped up the way we thought it would, except for the big upset of St. Thomas going down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of right off the bat in the conference tournaments, and so that was that first bubble burster that went down. I don't think it was a huge surprise that Stevens Point beat Whitewater. You know, I think we all thought that was kind of a coin flip type of game. But the biggest surprise, I would say, Dave, was that St. Thomas loss, which put them in Pool C, and and it took somebody out of Pool C. We don't know who that was, but it took someone out.
Obviously, some of the one of the other things was Anderson. I know you listened to the interview there with Anderson's head coach, and he's on the very small bubble of making the tournament. Your vantage point on their situation?
Well, my take, and I will get Pat's take on this. I think he's got a better feel, but my take is that Anderson, if they're going to get in, it's going to be as the number 18 or the number 19 Pool C out of 19. The interesting thing here, there's an interesting dynamic in the Midwest in that you got three teams that all have a chance, Wheaton, Illinois Wesleyan, and Anderson. It just really matters what way they rank the teams in the final regional ranking, the one that I guess for the first time we're actually going to get to see. I think Anderson has a chance to get that final Pool C. I really think the Midwest is going to get Illinois Wesleyan, Wheaton, and Anderson in.
The thing for me was they had the great winning percentage, low strength of schedule. That was it's one of those situations where you never really know what the committee is going to do with a team like that, where there's such a big skew. And we had so many other teams on the board had better strength of schedules and didn't have obviously 800 a regional winning percentage, but they were good enough that we thought to get in. Anderson's final numbers, as we looked at them across the board, 20-5 was their regional record, 800 winning percentage. 474 was the strength of schedule number. 2-3 against regionally ranked opponents, and then when we expanded out to the secondary criteria, we also looked at their overall D3 winning percentage of 815, which helped things out a little bit. I mean, I think absolutely Anderson's in the mix. Comparing Anderson to someone like Rutgers Newark, which had a lower record but a better strength of schedule, or Calvin, which had which hurt itself, I think, a little bit in the secondary criteria when we were looking at that. Those bottom four or so, anything after Colby, I think, is a real toss-up.
Pat, did anybody impress you maybe that you weren't really sure about? I should say, Bob, did anybody really impress you going forward out of the Midwest from the last week or two, or did it kind of hold the way you expected it to?
It did. I think, Dave, there weren't a lot of surprises. The biggest surprise, I would say, is Anderson losing to Defiance. That was a bit of a surprise. I don't really think Illinois Wesleyan's win over Wheaton was a huge surprise. That was a 2-3 game in the conference tournament, and it could have gone either way. Carthage winning the CCIW conference tournament on their floor was not a surprise. So really, yeah, just the Anderson loss was the biggest surprise, I would say, Dave.
Pat's got three CCIW teams making it in, Illinois Wesleyan and Wheaton being the Pool Cs. Does that surprise you any? It certainly surprised me a little bit.
It surprised me, Dave, from a standpoint, and I had a conversation with someone yesterday about this. Every year is unique when it comes to this stuff. And some years you have to have a winning percentage of like .750 to even get in the discussion. And this year, it just seems to me, and I'd have to really pull the data to know if I'm right, it seems to me like the bar for Pool C is actually lower than it's been. And so then when you really look at the resumes, Illinois Wesleyan seems to me to be a very safe Pool C. They seem to be, from 1 to 19, they're probably about number 10 or 11. And Wheaton, when you get towards the bottom, it seems to me that they stack up really well with like the bottom 4 or 5. So surprised in terms of past years, yes, but not surprised when you look at this year's resumes.
Pat?
The final 7 teams, the teams that didn't get in when we selected Anderson, had winning percentages, and I'll start from the bottom up, 667 for Wisconsin Lacrosse, 680 for Ramapo, 682 for Ithaca, 708 for Wittenberg, 714 Messiah, 720 Western Connecticut, and 741 Austin College. And the last teams that were selected, Anderson, of course, we know was 800. Calvin was 789. But their overall numbers, the secondary criteria, were not good for them. Rutgers Newark was 739. Wheaton was 680. And Colby was 773.
And I have to admit, the ones you had left out, I had no real problems with sitting out. Now, a reminder that this list does not include the fact that Mary Hardin-Baylor won. I'm assuming Texas Dallas gets in on a Pool C, and Anderson is really looking at the outside now.
Yeah, and in fact, we've posted an updated bracket that includes both Texas Dallas and Mary Hardin Baylor. Things shuffled around a little bit, and I'm going to do this off the top of my head. I believe we sent Grove City to the Eastern Mennonite pod, and then we flew both Texas Dallas and Mary Hardin Baylor into the Virginia Wesleyan pod, where they wouldn't face each other in the first round, but could potentially face each other in the second round.
Hey, Bob, your point of view. Pat's bracket, according to one viewer, doesn't have the so-called bracket of death, which is nice. But the NCAA always seems to have a little trouble with that. What's your biggest fear, especially out of that Midwest, which we all talked about was not necessarily down? McGrath pointed out that maybe everybody has evened off and come up to the quality that the Midwest has. But what's your biggest fear with the bracket that comes out tomorrow?
Well, I think Coach McGrath's point is a good one. I'll say I don't know if it's possible to construct a bracket of death this year with the Midwest and West teams. WashU is a great team. I wouldn't say that they're an unbeatable team. You know, Stevens Point, Whitewater, they're great teams. But I just don't think this is like it was last year when you would put Wheaton and WashU and Elmhurst and Whitewater and whoever else was in the bracket of death, as we called it. I think the teams have alleviated the problem this year because there's just not as many great teams, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, actually, I would concur. I was kind of mentally preparing myself, especially in the middle of the week. I started to do a bracket projection, and I got really frustrated because I couldn't separate some of the teams I wanted to separate. And then I realized, you know what? Those teams aren't necessarily the be-all and end-all of Division III this season. And I think, as compared to last year where it would have been, unthinkable to put all those teams in the same bracket. Oh, wait, they did. But, this year you could do that and, St. Thomas is in that bracket. Well, St. Thomas is beatable. Carthage is in that side of the country, but, has Carthage done enough to deserve being protected from Stevens Point or from Whitewater or from WashU? Yeah, maybe not. I think that, especially I think the emergence of the four ODAC teams this year makes it possible to really kind of expand your mind and think there are so many teams that could win this national championship that I'm not too concerned about, 3 or 4 of them being in this Midwest-West section.
Hey, Pat, wanted to get your take and your projection. You had 2 Wisconsin teams, 2 WIAC teams, I should say, hosting, and you had Carthage going to one of them. Your thoughts on Carthage in terms of their hosting chances in the first and second round?
Okay, and here's what I was thinking along those lines. Basically, my goal was to take the 2 best teams in each bracket, set them out, and give them hosting privileges. For example, and I know this is not our part of the country, but Middlebury, I thought, was deserving of the opportunity to host. So I moved them from the quote-unquote Northeast bracket to the East bracket. So there were actually 3 Northeast region teams that host. In the Midwest and West, basically, I felt that the WashU deserved to host. I felt that not only did Whitworth deserve to host, but they were going to host anyway because of the way the bracket was going to be set up. And then it was basically those other 3 teams left: Stevens Point, Whitewater, and Carthage. And I just thought that looking at the way the regional rankings had come down in previous weeks, that it was more likely that Whitewater and Stevens Point would be rated higher in the regional rankings, and that's why I gave them the hosting slots.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily disagree. I think that'll be a close call, and I guess if I had to guess, I would guess that Carthage will end up hosting one of those, and one of the WIACs will not. But I definitely see your rationale, and it'll be interesting to see which way they go.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as close a decision as the Worcester-John Carroll decision, which people keep asking about in the chat room every 5 minutes. But
I get the same IMs, too.
It was a pretty close one. Just for those of you who are watching, I picked John Carroll to host over Worcester because John Carroll beat Worcester head-to-head, and I think that they will be ranked ahead of them still when this week is over. Yeah. That was why I did it.
Yeah. I'm predicting Worcester hosting because I think Worcester's got the better. Well, winning this week certainly helped.
Hey, Dave, one thing I will add
that's just because, no offense, but there's nobody in the North Coast that's capable of beating Worcester in the semifinals.
It's happened. So, it's happened.
Tell me.
Just a couple years ago.
in the conference semifinals?
I don't remember if it was semis or championship, but Worcester did lose. Bob, you were asking?
Yeah, I was just going to say, one thing that I hope we see, I'll start off by seeing this. There was a post somewhere on one of the boards today, and it said, it seems like D3Hoops.com does a really good job of picking the Pool Cs, not such a good job of getting the brackets right. And my thought to that is that it's because the D3Hoops.com...
We think about it.
Yeah, the D3Hoops.com team is creative. And I hope we see some creativity. Like, if you look at Pat's bracket, I can't remember what the match is.
Actually, Bob, before I forget it, it's not that we get it wrong. The NCAA gets it wrong.
Well, that's like the WashU regional. Pat's got the WashU regional not just automatically connected to, let's say, the Whitewater regional. He's actually put some thought into how the sectional is bracketed. And I hope we see a little creativity at the national level this year.
Yes,
I would say this. I'll say this first on the NCAA's side. They are privy to a lot more information that we don't have. We don't know who's filed to host. We don't know who's hosting on or when we're doing the women's bracket, we don't know who's hosting on the men's side. Although we know who we projected to host. That's why we put William Patterson on the road in our women's bracket, because we think William Patterson's men are going to host.
Right.
Also, I'll be honest with you, we're spending a little more money than the NCAA is probably likely to spend. This is what this bracket usually is a kind of a combination of what I think should happen and what I think will happen. And to be honest with you, I know that Bob knows that St. Mary's can go to WashU because he and I were there the last time it happened. Somewhere you have to bite the bullet every once in a while, and putting St. Mary's there instead of that's basically swapping the St. Mary's pod with the John Carroll pod. That's probably what the NCAA would do if they were going to pinch pennies this year, which I'm sure they do. They always do. Guilford pod would probably swap with where am I? Probably the WashU pod, of course. And they could definitely deathify this bracket that way. But I'm just trying to put something out there that's possible for them to do. And there are so many combinations of ways you can do this of teams within 500 miles of each other. They also know how they seed the teams. We don't. They don't tell anybody. So there's that factor. So there's a reason why we don't do a good job predicting the brackets. It's because, A, the NCAA can do whatever they want. There are a lot of combinations. And B, frankly, they could very well look at this and go, well, I'm not going to do that because Pat Coleman at D3Hoops.com said that we were going to do it this way.
Right.
I've heard that from committee members, so,
Oh, well, I can imagine who those committee members might have been. Because the other thing
might be retiring.
Yeah. The other thing I do know, too, is that the committee does try and make a concerted effort. I remember when we discussed with a few committee members the fact that last year they could have easily moved the upper right-hand bracket and the lower left-hand bracket to the opposite sides, swap them. It wouldn't have changed any travel situations, just would have made for maybe a better Final Four. They all kind of looked and went, yeah, and you know what? We're going to put systems in place that allow us to do that.
And I think the challenge with that, Dave, is a lot of times that the metrics we use to evaluate who the best teams are, like the top 25 poll, don't match up with the way that the primary criteria determines who the best teams are. Using the regional criteria. I think that ends up being the biggest challenge in trying to do that, and it ends up being with the brackets that look so imbalanced.
Or, to be honest with you, using the exact same metrics as the NCAA, but interpreting them differently. How do we, how do they determine strength of schedule versus regional win-loss record versus how we look at the same thing for two teams? And that's something that's subject to interpretation. And also, the big specter in the room is that the NCAA doesn't always have all the data right that they're working with either.
Right. Well, did we ever find out if any of that got fixed?
I know some of it did. I think Richard Stockton's record is still wrong. In going through it, I found one perfect region, the Midwest men's region, was absolutely perfect.
I think that was the one who one of the committee members told us that they had made.
St. Norbert's coach, Gary Grish, remember?
Yep.
He said you asked him if he was confident that they were working with the right data. He is the only person who was working with the right data in all of the NCAA.
That's pretty. By the way, the South talked themselves up too. You're telling me they weren't perfect?
Yeah, they weren't. No, a lot of them were good. A lot of them were really good, and the East Atlantic, Mid Atlantic, and both men's and women's was just awful. And it's like nobody knows how to measure 200 miles.
Crow flies. How would you like me to remember?
I think you just use your own software to determine it.
Gotcha. Hey, Bob, looking at who you think's in, obviously no idea. We'll probably talk to you if we can on Thursday as to who do you think are favorites. But we're looking at this. One, not necessarily surprises, but what do you think might be the team coming out of the Midwest that nobody's really counting on to make a run? Obviously, they're going to have to get WashU and all them past them, but still.
Yeah, I think WashU would be the favorite in the Midwest, so that probably wouldn't be a good answer to your question. I think if Wheaton gets in, I think they have some holes to where it's going to be tough to make a deep run. They're not a very deep team, and Illinois Wesleyan is a team. Obviously, that's the team I follow. Probably the most balanced team of a team that you want to call a sleeper. A team that's not ranked. Just lost by 3 points at Carthage in a real close game, and played a close one versus WashU earlier. So Illinois Wesleyan's a team that could do some damage. But WashU is the class of the region, and so I don't really expect anyone to knock WashU off that pedestal. And until I see it, I probably won't believe it.
Obviously, the fun gets started on Friday. Any idea where your destination will be before you hear about the bracket tomorrow?
Well, I'm the only Illinois Wesleyan fan that's just thrilled to think we're going to WashU because that's the closest place I can possibly go. That's about an hour and a half for me from here in Columbia, Mo. And after just traveling 436 miles to Kenosha, Wisconsin, I would love to see my Titans in St. Louis. So that's what I'm rooting for, Dave.
Hey, by the way, I'm still waiting for that press conference you alluded to, the one I'd be invited to but not allowed to ask any questions.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out those Final Four plans, so I'll let you know ASAP, David.
Sounds good. Maybe we'll chat with you on Thursday?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Hey, Bob, I appreciate you joining us. Take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right. And that is Bob Coleman. Wow. Pat Quillman and Bob Coleman joining me on the show here. Jeez, Pat's still with us. Sorry about that.
I think I know some fans of some other programs, maybe a little bit east of here, who might think we are interchangeable.
Well, hey, that's disappointing. Hey, there's a big question going on in the chat room regarding F&M and St. Mary's. And why St. Mary's gets a chance to host and maybe F&M isn't, and why there's no love for the Diplomats. Hold on, we're trying to... There we go. Chris with a save. What? Just give everybody your point of view on why SMC's hosting, which I don't disagree with. It's obvious, and why F&M isn't getting necessarily the same love.
Well, I mean, it's the kind of thing where you look at the criteria again. St. Mary's regional winning percentage, and this is, I don't have this through today. Only I can get this through today here if I stall a little bit, and if I could learn how to type. My hands are pretty tired today. Okay, let's let that load in the background. While we talk about St. Mary's with a regional winning percentage of 880 and an SOS of 517, which I don't think they had anybody that played today, any of their opponents or opponents' that would make a big shift in that number and make a big difference. Franklin and Marshall, although the page with the updated stuff hasn't loaded, they're going to be 23-4 in region. 23 divided by 27 is 852. Strength of schedule, here we go.
Oh, I already got that one for you.
492.
It's up to 492 now?
It is up to 492. Gettysburg helped them out a little bit, I guess. That's through today's game. So,
well, St. Mary's is 517, maybe higher.
It stays at 517 versus 492. It's not a gigantic difference, but I think it's a significant difference, and certainly that's why they were ranked ahead of them in the regional rankings coming into the week, which is why people still think they're going to be ranked ahead now. Albright, I think, probably would still be ranked in between them. The numbers out of the MAC Commonwealth have been very good this season. Albright has a strength of schedule of 569. That's significantly better than either St. Mary's or F&M. But Albright's record isn't quite as good, which is why they're not the number one team in the region. I didn't see any reason why the top four teams in the Mid-Atlantic region should change over last week. They all won their conference tournaments. St. Mary's picks up a win against a regionally ranked opponent by beating Wesley. Franklin and Marshall, the needle doesn't move there. Albright beat Lyco to win the MAC Commonwealth, so they get another win against a regionally ranked opponent. And Cabrini didn't play a regionally ranked opponent in the conference tournament for the Colonial States Athletic Conference. So I didn't think there was enough to move the needle to put Albright ahead of St. Mary's, and certainly F&M didn't do anything better than St. Mary's did this week to make that change.
Where was Albright regionally ranked on Wednesday?
Number 2.
Right. So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just saw a post in the chat room saying Albright's going to be 4 or 5. No, they're going to be 2.
Well, they should be 2. I can't imagine they'd be.
They won. There's no reason to drop them.
No, I don't think so either. The only unless that person is talking about a 16-team bracket, which we're going to start getting confusing seed numbers. Like
That's why I always tell people there's really no such thing as seeds.
I mean, there are, but they're secrets, so there's no point in us really trying to talk about
Well,
them.
and if you try to figure it out, it'd be wrong.
Well, it wouldn't be 6 plays 11 and 7 plays 10 and 8 plays 9 necessarily. That's the thing. You could figure out correct seeds, but then they wouldn't have logical matchups.
Right. So now here's the question, and we alluded to it earlier. Anderson is the last pick now, but we're assuming that drops out and Texas Dallas is put into not necessarily their place. I just mean into the pool seat bid location.
Yep.
Now we get the announcements at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and brackets are released. Give everybody. Well, I'm trying to. What's the basic? When do you think we're going to have brackets available for people? Because a lot of us think the NCAA bracket's going to crash.
Well, here's what maybe. Yeah, here's what I think is going to happen. The NCAA is going to launch its show about 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, and of course 7 a.m. Pacific. The show is going to have probably about a 5 or so minute intro. So don't get too freaked out about not seeing a team's name right away. They're going to walk through the brackets. It's going to be, the real slimmed down version of the CBS show. The guy is going to stand up there and reveal the names and probably pronounce some names incorrectly. And then by the end of the show, which could take all the way to the bottom of the half hour, we'll have the whole bracket. To be honest with you, traffic all over the place is really high when that happens. It's high on our site. It's high on the NCAA's site. So things are going to be slow. As soon as we have a bracket available, we're going to throw it up there. We have 2 servers that we work with. The tournament brackets always go on the second server, so that there's a fighting chance for people to download them.
Fighting chance.
Yes, exactly. Now, I would say this. If you're on d3hoops.com and it's running slowly, go over to d3boards.com. That's where the other server is, and we will make sure that we get information posted over there as to how people can get the bracket. And then here I might as well just say this out loud. This week we signed a contract with Presto Sports. So
ta-da!
So they're going to be. They've already been handling our data for about 3 years now. The game day data, schedules, results, standings, and all that. We are going to be now rolling out over the next year. We're going to be hosted by them. They're going to be a completely new redesign. I am hopeful that there's enough bandwidth capacity within the network that we can ramp up on days like that and not have to worry about things crashing. We'll still keep a backup server outside the farm to handle things if things happen. But that is it's good news for future Selection Sundays. It's not going to help us tomorrow, which is Selection Sunday, sort of.
Talking to Pat Coleman here of D3Hoops.com. Actually, going to have Christopher Newport here on the line here shortly. So do you want to stay on the line and listen to them, or would you like to take a break yourself?
No, I can hold on now. I think all the brackets are out and all the broken links are fixed, and let's talk.
Well, as a result, I'm going to take a very quick break. So if you have any questions during the break, email us at Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. That's Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Try us on the AOL-IM at Hoopsville2000 or join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or in the chat room as well. You're listening to Hoopsville presented by D3Hoops.com. We'll be back right after this.
Amber Alert, abducted wearing blue shirt, black jeans.
Now when an Amber Alert is issued, you can get the same information the authorities get right on your cell phone. Sign up for free at wirelessamberAlerts.org. Think of it, something as simple as a free text message could free an abducted child.
All units Amber Alert canceled. Child recovered safely. Suspect is in custody.
wirelessamberAlerts.org. A child is calling for help. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Who are you?
Who can make you cheer?
And play your fight song?
Who can bring you to your feet?
Or bring you to your knees?
When the game is on the line, who do you want to take the last shot?
NCAA basketball. Who's your team? NCAA Women's College Basketball. All day, every day, our game. These women can really play. Filling it up, knocking them down, and bringing it home. It's basketball at its purest. For family fun and great entertainment, there's nothing like it. All day, every day, our game. NCAA Women's College Basketball.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Who are you?
What are your team colors?
Who can make you cheer?
Who can bring your family and friends together?
And play your fight song?
Who can bring you to your feet?
Or bring you to your knees?
When the game is on the line, who do you want to take the last shot?
And who do you want to slap high fives, jump up and down, and yell at the top of your lungs with?
There's probably a game near you today. NCAA basketball. Who's your team?
Did you know there's only one radio show dedicated to Division III basketball in the world?
Welcome to the big show.
It's Hoopsville. You can tune into Hoopsville throughout the season on Sunday and Thursday nights starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, live on your computer. Just go to www.d3hoopsville.com for more information, because if you're a Division III basketball fan, you've got to listen to Hoopsville. Hoopsville is presented thanks to D3Hoops.com and in part by the National Association of Basketball Coaches. And welcome back to Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, broadcasting out of the Hoopsville studios, thanks to the National Association of Basketball Coaches and D3Hoops.com. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Lots to still talk about in the last 30 minutes of our program here. Remember that the men's bracket will be announced at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on NCAA.com. You can also get that information on D3Hoops.com when it is made official. You can also IM us at Hoopsville. I'm doing 3 things. Women's is 12:30, and that information will be also posted up on D3Hoops.com. If you have any questions for us, I'm doing 3 things, and it's lovely. Email us at Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. That's Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. You can also IM us at Hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM, or join us in the chat room. You can also join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville. Feel free to fire away. We would love to hear from you and try and answer some of your questions. Now joining us on the line is the head coach of Christopher Newport and the athletic director, Coach C.J. Woolham. Coach, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
We also have Pat Coleman on the line with us as well, so I hope you don't mind his intrusion of this as well.
Hey, Pat, how are you doing?
Hey, Coach, how's it going? Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Coach, interesting situation here. We knew your conference was only going to get 1 bid, but I mean, a lot of people saw the number 1 seed and thought it was going to be North Carolina Wesleyan, and lo and behold, here you guys come along and pull off the big upset and steal the bid.
Well, the odd thing about it, during the regular season, they went through with only 1 loss. The one good thing was we were their only loss. So we had split during the regular season, and we knew it would be a tough game. He had them on a roll. I think John Thompson had gotten him 11 straight wins, and so we knew it was going to be a tough battle. But our kids played well, and we're on a little bit of a roll ourselves. We won 6 in a row, including the 3 in the tournament, and we're just tickled to death that we're back in the big show.
Coach,
go ahead, Coach.
Coach, you guys, of course, had a great run through the 90s and the early part of the past decade, the aughts, the 21st century, whatever. But it's been kind of a struggle for you over the last couple of years. What's kind of happened to Christopher Newport to take you guys off the national radar?
Well, the most disappointing thing, Pat, of the last couple of years is we had never gone more than 2 years without being in the NCAA tournament since I've been here. And this past 3 years, we didn't go. We won it in 2006, and we went. But we didn't win it the next 3 years, and that was very disappointing. But that's what I think makes this one so special. A lot of people have written us off, and we lost in the finals of the tournament last year, which kept us from going. So it wasn't like we had a bad year. And this year we struggled early, but we've gotten it together. And the thing I'm most proud of is this is now 4 decades in which we've gone to the NCAA tournament. And I think that's something to be proud of.
Coach, tell us a little bit about the team, leaders, and kind of the ins and outs of this program that's obviously moving forward to another bid.
Well, our backbone is our center, who's been an all-league performer, Mark Blasingame. He's 6'8" center. He's now up the national list in blocks. I think he might be the national leader in blocks now for his career. He's had a solid career, a little bit up and down this year, but in this run of 6 straight games, he's played great. He had 2 offensive rebounds that kind of sealed the deal for us against NC Wesley off our missed free throws. The first one he kicked back out, and then the second one he tipped back out, and those were big keys to winning the game. We lost our all-conference player from a year ago, Davon Barton, who was a tremendous point guard in our program, and that's really why we struggled a little bit early. We played musical chairs a little bit and struggled some, and finally settled in on Paul Going, who's a really smart junior player, and he steadied the ship for us. And we got our rotation much better the last half of the season. Other than that, we had 2 other all-tournament performers. Brian Herman, who's a sophomore from Denby High School. He had a great tournament, hit a big 3 that really set the game our way, at the end of the game yesterday. And Conley Taylor, another local product from Menchville, he had a fantastic game. Both of them were all tournaments. So those 3 guys, Blasingame and Herman and Conley Taylor, have been real mainstays. And we inserted Brian in the lineup just recently, and he's really taken over. So we kind of feel good about where we are right now, and we're anxious to play some more.
Coach, if not for this run of 6 wins at the end of the season, you would be going into an off season, excuse me, a win or a couple of wins short of getting to your career 500th win, which you got at the end of the regular season. And I don't know, I wanted to kind of get your take on this as someone who's both the head coach and the athletic director. For a school that has a really sizable athletic department and a lot of facilities, that seems like it must be a lot of work. And then in secondly, how do you decide, to make a coaching change? How would you decide if you thought that you had to find another coach? Is that the decision you would make yourself, or would someone else higher up on campus maybe make that decision for you, or how would that happen?
Gosh, you've deflated me already, Pat.
I know. I'm sorry. Well, it's a good thing that this is now a hypothetical question rather than an actual one, right?
It's okay. I'm sure others have said the same thing, but always our president and myself would talk about something like that, and he would have the ultimate decision. And we've got a tremendous president here in Paul Tribble, and he's been greatly supportive. And I think the record speaks for itself. You did ask the question, what if it hadn't have happened? And all I can tell you is it had been a miserable summer and a miserable off season had we not gotten that, just because a lot of people made such a big deal of it. And the reaction to the 500 victories was beyond anything that I would have ever expected. From the president on down, the president kind of led the charge on that, and everybody was so gracious. And this is all happening at a time when our women's program is having their best year ever, undefeated, 28-0, and it just sort of has ignited the school. The fact that we won the tournament in addition to the women's program just, took everybody to a new level. And, I think it showed that we still got a lot of fight left in us. Our players are still very dedicated. We are a different school than we were in some of the years you alluded to, the late 80s and the 90s. we become a very difficult school academically, and at one time we were not. And that's a challenge in recruiting. But we're still getting players. We've only had one bad year, and that was the year that Mark couldn't play Blasingame. He got sick right before practice started. We had nowhere to turn, and we had a bad year. Last year, we're 18-9 and losing the finals, and this year, we're conference champions. So, I don't think it's time to throw dirt on us yet. We've got a lot of kick left in us, and our guys are very, very excited about the opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament.
Coach, obviously the women's program, and since you're the athletic director, it wouldn't be hard to ask about that. Undefeated for them, and then this run. Obviously, there's a lot of basketball played out in your area. Virginia Wesleyan isn't that far away, and Hampden-Sydney is certainly as well. But what's the buzz been like on campus with this basketball season?
Well, it's been great, and we had a lot of things going for us, and I'd say first and foremost was the year that our women have had. Not only did they go undefeated, they have a player that I believe is a legitimate National Player of the Year in Chelsea Schweers. I've been around the game a long time, and I actually go out of my way to watch her play. I mean, she's that exciting. She's that much fun. She can shoot a three with no problem, and then she can drive and pull up for a 10-foot jump shot, which is a pretty hard combination for a little guard. But their closest call this year was against Ferrum, and it looked like they had lost. They were down 3 with 1.7 to go, and they get it inbounds to her in the dead corner, and 2 people in her face, and she drains the 3 to send it in overtime, and then they win going away in overtime. So, I think the big buzz, and rightfully so, has been about our women's program. They've been fantastic, but as we neared 500 and as we started to put together a win streak, that just magnified the excitement on campus and the excitement within our administration. And we hosted the tournament, and the women got to cut down the nets, and then we're in the next game, and certainly not the favorite, but we played well, and we're fortunate to beat North Carolina Wesleyan, and we got to cut down the nets. So it's been a pretty special weekend on our campus, and we're all really excited about seeing the pairings tomorrow.
Coach, does the hosting for the USA South Conference tournament, does it rotate among the schools year to year, or how does that work? Because I know obviously you guys weren't top seed.
We have bid on it. I guess this is our fifth year, and quite frankly, we have the nicest facility in the league, and we draw the best crowds, and we really do a great job of hosting. And I think basically the presidents of the league said, hey, we're going to continue to go back to Christopher Newport because it's the best place to hold the tournament. You would think the home court would be the deciding factor, but the truth of the matter is we've won it twice in 5 years. I think our women have won it twice in 5 years. Averett's men won it 3 times. We were beginning to call it the Averett East Show, and North Carolina Wesleyan knocked them out this year, but they had won it 3 years in a row, and we were real nervous about this year because we didn't want them to do our four-peat that we had done before, and Wesleyan knocked them out. But home court is important, but Averett showed that certainly the best team can win, regardless of where you play.
Coach, obviously a lot more ahead of you, obviously the brackets to come out. Any idea, or do you have any hopes or dreams of who you might play in the first game?
No, not at all. And, some years, you sort of take that posture. You'd like to go here. You might want to host. You might want to do that. We know we're traveling. And I've been, before we went on the air, I looked at your site, and I guess you had all changed the original. I think originally you had us playing Wesleyan at Wesleyan, Virginia Wesleyan. And now it looks like you got us playing Texas Dallas at Wesleyan. You guys are a lot smarter with that stuff than I am. But as I said, we are happy to be in it, and wherever they want to send us, we'll go gladly and do our best to try to get a win.
Oh, very good, Coach. I appreciate you joining us on the line. As always, we give the traditional final word to the coach. Any final words you want to say to those who may be listening?
Well, I think our program is very solid. We've got a great nucleus coming back next year, and every now and then there's a naysayer, but we've got an awful lot of support, and that all came through in the last week or so. And we think the basketball program for both men and women at Christopher Newport is very solid, and we're both very proud to be representing our school in the NCAA tournament this year.
Very good. Hey, Coach, thanks so much for joining us. Congratulations on the big win and making the NCAA tournament, and we'll see who you match up with on Monday and look forward to seeing you make it in, or see what you do in the tournament.
All right, thank you, guys. Enjoyed it.
Very good. Coach C.J. Woolham joining us on the Hoopsville hotline. Pat Coleman's still on the line with us, and Pat, a storied tradition there, Christopher Newport, and you alluded to it. They, last few years really haven't been much of a name, but it seems like they might be on their way back.
Yeah, and the one thing interesting, of course, is Coach Willem kind of went out of the way to point out that they haven't won the conference tournament very much while they were hosting it, and I wouldn't have expected a team that was 6-6 2 years ago in the conference, 10-16 overall, 15-11, 7-5 the year before that. I mean, those aren't teams that are supposed to win the conference tournament either. So I do kind of in a year where they have a team that's maybe not good enough to win it on a neutral floor, but good enough to win it at home. I think that's an advantage. I think this year, he kind of sidestepped whether he thought this year would be considered something like that. I think it would be, but to be honest with you, the USA South was so balanced top to bottom this year as well that there were a lot of teams that could have come out of that. Even though North Carolina Wesleyan did go 11-1 in conference, they were only 16-10 overall. They were certainly a team that could be beaten. They've been beaten in 9 games out of 14 in non-conference play. So that was a conference that was up for the taking, and the proverbial team getting hot at the right time this year happened to be Christopher Newport.
Hey, if you have any questions for myself or Pat Coleman, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also IM us at Hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. That is Hoopsville2000. Or join us in the Twitter account. That's D3Hoopsville for all you Twitter fans. Or you can also join us in the chat room where there's a lively discussion, Pat, as to who the top conferences are this year. I've got ODAC, WIAC, NESCAC, maybe CCIW, UAA. 4 and 5 is kind of a throwaway for me. Your thoughts?
I think the person who said you were wrong is right.
Of course.
I think you flop the WIAC and the ODAC, and that's probably the direction I would go. I always measure from top to bottom, and I know that maybe not everybody does, but
I am too. But I just think when you got 4 teams at the top of the ODAC who are in the top 25 almost weekly, and get the job done on a nightly basis for the most part.
That's only 2 more teams in the WIAC.
That's double.
Okay. Well, I mean that was my that's my take. They go deeper, obviously, in the WIAC, and in many sports that's the case. I'm pulling up WIAC standings just to remind myself. Even River Falls at 9-16 didn't have a great year, but proved they were capable of knocking off one of the top teams in the conference when push came to shove. But even if you give away that last game, I look at a 94-59 blowout of the second-place team in the Northwest Conference by River Falls. Oshkosh 11-14, Eau Claire 14-11, 8-1 out of conference. Superior 8-3 out of conference, and these guys backed it up with fairly decent conference records as well. I just think that when you you took the picture down. What did I do?
No, you're coming back.
I just think I think there are more good teams in the Wisconsin Conference, and maybe not all the teams in the top half of the standings are going to compete with the teams in the top half of the standings of the ODAC. But the tournament is going to prove a lot of that too. We'll see.
Again, if you have any questions for Pat or I, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also IM us at Hoopsville2000. That's Hoopsville2000. Or join us in the chat room. By the way, Chris has put up on the back of the board, don't lose to a bad team.
That's good. I noticed that was up when Anderson's coach was on. I hope
right afterward.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that was alluded to after our conversation with Coach Slider.
That's a Selection Sunday 2006 show or 2005? Don't lose to a bad team.
6. I think it was 06.
In the Goucher Studios with Jared and all the pizza.
Yeah, exactly. We've got our own pizza sitting here, by the way. Hey, that's a tradition now. Hey, Pat, another question was, how do you feel about an NJAC getting a 4th, or about an NJAC and their 4 top teams? William, Patterson, Rutgers, Newark, Stockton, and Ramapo.
I
think just how you feel about them.
I'm going to assume the question is going to be along the same lines of how they stack up nationally. at least I'm going to talk from that standpoint. I'm not sure that that those guys have the cachet right now. I don't know where the great wins are. The signature.
I think William Patterson's the only one who's got anything in there.
Well, and there's also somebody. It's Randolph Macon beat Rutgers Newark. That was a chance for the NJAC to kind of show itself. That'd be the fourth best team in the NJAC against the fourth best team in the ODAC. And that looks like it was not a particularly close game. At least it certainly wasn't on paper. Richard Stockton has certainly had its much publicized struggles this year. They lost to Susquehanna on a neutral floor in a non-conference game that I think a top national team should be winning. They beat Albright, which is good. Albright's not a top 25 team, but they're a strongly regionally ranked team. I just opened up Rutgers Newark for the second time, not needing to do that. We know what William Patterson has done this year. That's certainly very impressive. But if I look at the out-of-conference games, which one is the signature non-conference win, I'm not sure there's one there. So, that's something that's going to have to be proven in the tournament. It's been a long time since the NJAC has had multiple teams in the tournament, and frankly, it's been a few years since we've been able to consider the NJAC a power conference. So, they got a chance to do that this year. They did get a team to the Final Four last year. They didn't. They had a fairly non-bracket of death road to get there, but
yeah.
I
was there. I watched most of it.
Yeah, exactly. Were there no ranked teams, right? Is that right?
I don't think there was, no. Amherst was the only name I can remember of noteworthy, and they were having the year that, kind of alluded to what this year was going to be like.
So, I think three teams in the tournament is probably not unreasonable. It's a very wide open year. That doesn't bother me. But, I don't know what's going to happen when they get there.
I got a question. I think it's University of Chicago question. What do you think they should get into the? Do you think they should get into the tournament? Any comments on their hard schedule?
I definitely think they should get into the tournament. Strength of schedule was a factor for us in selecting them in the first place. We did project them in. Chicago, we had actually 10th on the list of 21 at-large bids. Chicago's strength of schedule number was 593 winning percentage, basically. So that was pretty good. They were the second team in the Central Region in terms of at-large bids, right behind Carthage, who we also selected, obviously ahead of them. So, I think Chicago's played a bunch of tough teams. They haven't, been as successful against them, to be sure. But at least they know what an NCAA tournament team looks like, even if they don't have a whole lot of experience necessarily beating NCAA tournament teams this year.
If you have any questions for Pat Coleman or myself, email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Your AOL IM is hoopsville2000, and your chat room is also an option, or Twitter at d3hoopsville. If you have questions, please feel free. Questions are about All-Americans. That's almost impossible to start doing now, but can you at least give us deadlines and information for people out there?
Absolutely. And all the SIDs in Division III got this email from me last week, but the nomination process is open, and they have until March 9th to nominate people. Then we have a voter pool for the all-region team that's in some SIDs and some staff. Dave, I hope you'll vote on especially the regions in your neck of woods, so that we'll have the all-region teams then out, I believe, Tuesday of the week of the Final Four. And then we announce who's on the All-American team in the pregame show for the national championship game, as Dave is well familiar with, on Saturday afternoon leading up to tip-off.
I hear if we keep this up, it'll be Saturday morning soon.
Well, I think we can actually manage to get it after 12 o'clock, right?
I'm just being sarcastic.
12:05 to 12:40.
Hey, it allows us to end our season a little earlier and toast the season, as it were.
I think I still have to work until the women's game is done, but yeah, they have wireless at Mac and Bob's.
Yes, they do.
Room.
And the Pine Room, exactly. Hey, reminder, everybody, by the way, we will be down in Salem, Pat and I, with Hoopsville on a special Thursday night edition. We always do it on Thursday, but this is the team hotel version on Thursday night. If you're in Salem, please feel free to join us at Hotel Roanoke that evening. And if you're not in Salem, join us on air and online. We'll certainly love to have you. And, of course, we'll be calling the games as well. But if you have questions in the waning minutes of our 4-hour special here, Hoopsville at d3hoops.com is your email address. Hoopsville2000 your AOL IM, and at D3Hoopsville is your Twitter, along with the chat room as well. Coach C, by the way, just got on my bad list, but
well, that's what you get for turning on a camera, dude. This was a radio show when it all started.
Hey, I got a very nice hairstyle. Let me I work hard on it. A little bit of grease, flash it back, and I'm done. Hey, so anyway, if you have any questions, please feel free. And by the way, yes, lots of viewers today on the show. We've been averaging close to 300, and we're well over 13,000 total for the night. So I want to thank everybody. We've been in the top 5 for broadcasts today for basketball most of the day. The only thing that's been beating us is apparently USAC Mopar National Midgets right now. Apparently you can live stream a basketball game unless that's the video game someone's streaming. That's exciting. And some beach surfing at Waikiki, and Pat just turned on. There you go.
Wow, that was fast. How'd you know that?
Oh, I'm smart. Yeah. By the way, sarcastic question: when can we expect the preseason top 25?
About sometime between October 15th and November 1st. And I'd be willing to bet WashU might not be number 1 in that one.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're not going to be number 1 in that one either. Yes. Yeah. Yes, agreed. So anyway, remember the brackets that we have projected, and I say we. Pat did all the hard work.
Well, actually, Coach C did some of the hard work too.
Yeah. Okay. Remember, he's on my bad side right now.
All right. Is that the side that's facing the camera or the side away from the camera?
Away from the camera.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's 4 hours. Can you tell? Will you have Catholic schedule by then, Pat? The question is.
No, they are the last ones to release their schedule every year now.
I know.
Clearly, I'm not the sports information director there anymore.
Clearly. Again, a couple minutes left here. If you got questions about projected brackets, and by the way, the brackets are new this year. I'd love to see how close we get those along with the teams. And if we get all 64 and 61, I'm going to, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. So obviously they are just, gauges of who we think is in and who we think is out. But tune in Thursday night, don't forget. We'll be talking to a few other teams that made the NCAA tournament, including some that may have surprised us. Usually Thursday we like to talk to those teams that are in the tournament we didn't expect. There will be a couple games on Thursday. Am I correct? 3 games, Pat? Yeah, that right?
That's right.
And they'll be playing for the bye teams who are on Saturday. I'm going to say it out loud. Remember, there is no seeds in Division III. A few people are asking about seeding in there. Just remember, there's no technical seeds. And the brackets didn't include 2 upsets today. Oh, you might be talking about Mary Hardin Baylor on one of them.
So the other one is not an upset, Clark, WPI. It doesn't affect who else gets in.
No, because the other team's not getting in on a Pool C.
We did update the bracket about, I'd say about an hour ago to reflect those changes. No, actually, it's pretty late, probably about 2 hours ago. So I would go back to the front page and check.
Hey,
Frank in the chat room, I understand where the NJAC lost. I want to know who the NJAC beat in the NCAA tournament.
I was at
Who was it?
I watched them, by the way. And no disrespect, they got lucky to get to where they were. They were a good team. I'm not saying they weren't good, but they were probably the last team I ever expected in a national championship game when we started this. Last year. Last team I ever expected.
I mean, maybe not the last, but they, yeah.
I thought they would make a run, but I didn't expect them to be in a championship game. They got Franklin and Marshall in the first game of the semifinals. No disrespect, but Franklin and Marshall shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all the good teams were not on that side of the bracket.
And by the way, Richard Stockton, with basically the same team, They did lose one of their key contributors, but basically the same team did nothing this year.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to know who the NJAC beat in the NCAA tournament.
And there's a good point,
That's
by the way.
I want to know. I'm wondering.
Middlebury losing, Stockton got a chance to host all the way to the Final Four. That probably was a deciding factor there. But I don't know if Middlebury, they might have shipped Middlebury down like they did Amherst. I can't speak to that right now. But national title hangover. Wash U didn't have the hangover.
No.
Email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. IM us at hoopsville2000. It's not their fault Stockton lost.
We can let him go. He's jumped the shark.
And we're done. If you have any questions, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM or the chat room. I'm going to give you a few extra minutes of bonus time to this 4 hours to ask us some questions about who's in and who's out of the NCAA tournament. Remember, on the women's side, it's 41 automatic qualifiers that we already know, 2 Pool Bs, which we pretty much already know, and quick math, 21 Pool Cs, right, Pat? Did I do that right?
On the women's side, 21
pool seeds. And then on the men, it's 42 and 19. So there you go. I'm just trying to make sure we didn't miss anything. Pat is... again, projections for the men's side is at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. And selections have been officially made tonight, by the way. We just don't know who. And then the brackets will be announced tomorrow with everything. Women will be 12:30. Not sure why the huge delay there, unless they don't expect the men to get off on time at 10. And by the way, that has happened. So tune in at 10, and just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's there. The only time I think one of the brackets made it out on time, Pat, I believe you and I were doing it.
That's right.
For the women's NCAA tournament. So I think in my recent memory, that's the only time one of those bracket shows started on time. Hey, question about Carthage. Person says, not sure if you covered it already, but you projected the women hosting and the men not. I thought it was men priority in the first weekend. Do you think Carthage men won't be hosting? Yeah, Carthage men won't be hosting.
Well, I mean, Carthage men would, if Carthage's men were selected to host, then they would get priority over the women. We just simply didn't have Carthage projected to host. We thought that there were 2 other teams in that part of the country that deserved to host more than Carthage did. So if it had been, for example, we did take this into account in the bracket selection. We have William Patterson's men hosting, and William Patterson's women were good enough to host, but in our bracket they have to go to Rochester because the men kind of have the gym locked up for a couple of days. We think, I mean, Carthage is certainly good enough to host. There were basically, for the 2 regions, there were 5 teams that had that had good enough resumes to host, and only one of them had to sit out. And we thought Carthage would be the 5 of that group, which is of course a really strong group. We're only talking about Wash U, Stevens Point, Whitewater, and Whitworth.
Question, by the way, in the situation of who do I predict will be in the final this year? I can't predict that now. I need a bracket in front of me before I can predict that.
When we get the bracket, we'll talk all that stuff.
Yeah, because
definitely.
that is impossible to predict when you don't know what road one team might have to take. We don't have a bracket of death on our projections. That doesn't mean a bracket of death won't appear somewhere. Question, Ithaca out on the men's side? We are projecting yes.
Yeah, Ithaca was one of the 7 teams left standing at the table when the day was done for us last night in doing our projections. That didn't change today. Obviously, they only got further out when Texas Dallas lost. To be honest with you, Ithaca's regional record is not that great. It's 15-7. That was among the lowest of the ones that was left on the table. They played a handful of non-region games, which didn't help, which really don't get taken into consideration, except maybe at the very last minute when you get down to the bottom of the bubble. And they were 18-8 overall, so their non-region record doesn't really help them. They lost to Amherst, and we all know how Amherst ended up this year. They beat Roanoke, and Roanoke wasn't very good. They beat Case Western Reserve out of region, and Case was about in the middle of the UAA, if I remember correctly. So that's not a bad win, but it's not a great win either. They beat Endicott out of region. That doesn't help them. It just wasn't a good enough resume And it's not even like they were hot at the end of the year. They lost 4 of their last 10 games. So there wasn't enough there.
Elmhurst women left on the board. How close was it?
Well, we got through all the Central Region teams that were regionally ranked, so we had to start going and pulling out other teams. Whitewater was not in our final regional rankings, so we put them on the board. They got in, but they got in late, and that's when Elmhurst hit the board at 15-8, 652 regional winning percentage. Really good strength of schedule at 564, and 2-5 against a regionally ranked team. That doesn't sound good, but when you get down to that part of the bubble, 2-5 was actually pretty good. I think if we'd had another couple of slots to select, they might have gotten in maybe because of the strength of schedule, but they had the second worst record among the 8 teams that were on the board at the end, so it might have been a struggle. It just not enough, not a good enough winning wins and losses there.
There's a question about when final regional rankings will come out. Honestly, I don't know, and I forgot to check the NCAA website to see if it happened to get posted.
I severely doubt it. I mean, I'll certainly go and check.
Yeah, I doubt it too, because I don't think they're going to send that information out before they announce the teams that are in. And
here's what they did during the soccer season, which is another one of the sports that we cover. They did release the secret, quote unquote, secret rankings then, but they released them with the bracket, and that's kind of what I'm expecting to happen this time.
There was a question. Let's see. Hold on. Brandeis women not being regionally ranked. Let's remember one thing, too, by the way. Regional rankings come out. I don't even know. Pat, you know this from soccer. Did they give us an extra look at who else was on the regional rankings behind the required number?
I don't think so. I think it's just a regular regional ranking list. So in the women, we get 10 regionally ranked teams from the Northeast. As a reminder, this is who it was when the week started. We got 5 NESCAC teams at the top. I won't name them all. Then we go Emmanuel, and then 3 teams from the Little East, Western Connecticut, Eastern Connecticut, and Southern Maine, and then Babson in the New MAC. Babson won the New MAC, so they're not going to drop out, I don't think. One of the Little East teams might drop out, and Brandeis could potentially be the new number 10 team, but they would still have to wait until after the runner-up from the Little East got in, and we did not get the runner-up from the Little East in because we didn't put in the fifth NESCAC team. So there were 2 teams at least ahead of Brandeis when the Pool C teams ran out.
Another question I saw on there was who gets the first-round buys. We projected William Patterson, Whitworth, and Guilford. Guilford and Whitworth are pretty much regional decisions, I think, with geographics. William Patterson might be a little bit of that since there isn't a ton of teams from their area getting in, but they are close enough to the Northeast and Great Lakes. Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Pat, one question would be there then, why isn't Williams? And I think the obvious answer in my point of view, and correct me if I'm not wrong, is there's a ton of teams in the Northeast. It would make no sense for Williams to get a first-round bye.
I mean, Williams certainly could deserve a first-round bye. There are only 3 of them, and there are 8 number 1 seeds, and one of those byes is going to go to the number 2 seed in the West, Whitworth, because of geography reasons. So you really have 2 byes to split among the 8 teams. We picked Guilford because it helped us out geographically, and that will be one of the things the NCAA looks at is where can buys be used to help them. To be honest with you, there are also a lot of teams in the bracket that just aren't necessarily very good, and you can give one of those teams basically. I think we refer to it kind of offering them up to somebody in the first round. In this case, we offered up first the NEAC champ to Williams in our first version of the bracket, and then when Clark beat WPI to win the new